Welcome to the RePsychled podcast, where we discuss everyday issues from a mental health perspective. We are your hosts, Dr. Rashonda Strickland,
Dr. LaFanya Jones-Hines,
and Dr. Nichelle Wall.
Welcome back. It's supervision time. Today's mood music is brought to you by Cher, 1973, Half Breed.
Today we are going to be talking about Passe Blanc. And basically, y'all should see my face. So basically that is light-skinned people of color passing as white.
Mm-hmm.
So why do people want to live a life as a white passing person?
So I don't know why you would want to do it in today's time, but definitely pre-Jim Crow era, it was, for me, protection. You know, it would offer me a sense of protection that I would not have if I was a medium or darker version of a black person.
I mean, it's a level of protection. It is a way to live a life back then that was not given to you, especially, and we're speaking specifically from the perspective of America, North America, and being able to just have a better quality of life. And so I think that was the main reason. And of course, there's a whole host of other ones.
I agree with you, ladies. And I would add, it was their way of attaining a higher status in class. And I would even say now people still do it too, because we ain't that far.
Literally.
Touche on that.
I would say even now people would do it for the same reasons, because of the respect that they think white people get.
That makes sense.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I don't know if it would necessarily keep you more physically safe in today's world.
Right.
But I can completely understand that the perception of who you are could give you access to things that you wouldn't necessarily have with darker skin. That makes sense to me.
Which is sad, because we, the fact that we have to have a certain skin color, or let me just leave it like that. Skin color, giving us that perspective of thinking that if we had white skin over any type of color skin, we have better advantages.
I know one of my clients specifically is working on internalized racism right now. And this particular client was talking about an incident that had occurred, and it was a brown-skinned woman, meaning a black brown-skinned woman. And she openly says, I hate everything black. I hate everything to do with the culture of Black Americans, all that. But she be wearing kente cloth. She be, you know what I mean? It's very weird. I'm like, okay, what is happening? And she says this in a variety of ethnicities company where they work. It's just a very odd thing. And I'm like, ma'am, you're chocolate. Like there is no Passe Blanc for you.
Yeah.
So when you are saying these things, people are looking at you odd, because they're like, you're talking about yourself.
Yeah.
She refuses to date anyone who is outside of white.
So she's a Uncle Ruckus.
Yeah.
A female Uncle Ruckus.
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like.
Yeah. It's just so odd to see like the spectrum on that.
On what that
the
can be.
mindset versus the ability.
Yeah, but I think sometimes we forget like how beneficial that would have been, like in the antebellum South.
Oh yeah.
You know, sometimes I think we look back on our ancestors and we paint them with such a harsh paintbrush and don't really give a lot of credence to the life that they lived back then and some of the choices that they would have had to make.
Yeah, when that brawl happened in Alabama, I was take y'all back. I saw a lot of videos of people saying, we are not our ancestors, and I was like,
I am.
Right.
Yeah, don't talk down on them like that.
Yeah, because honestly, they had a lot of fight in them. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Well, and I'm thinking your ancestors survived.
Yes.
Like that's the whole reason you are here.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't matter that they were a slave. Most people were born into slavery. There was only a certain number of people that were actually brought here,
Mm-hmm.
and then we were bred here. So
Mhm.
you got to realize that for you to even exist as a Black American, descendant of a slave, they survived.
They survived, and a lot of the things that we use now, have now, was because of our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Just because someone stole it and put their name on it, don't
Yeah.
mean that it wasn't invented by
Mm-hmm.
our ancestors.
True.
Yeah. And I think because we are not in that level
Mhm.
of trauma, craziness, whatever you want to call it, people forget.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Mhm.
now that laws are being thrown out, things are going back to the way they were
Yeah.
30, 40, 50. We going to get to some
60s and 70s.
Mhm.
Yeah.
some more
Unfortunately.
and people are like, "Oh my gosh, know this, know that." And I'm like, "Y'all, like people had to do what they had to do." And
Yeah.
that's why in previous sessions we've talked about there are levels to being on this planet.
Yeah.
You got surviving, you got existing, you got living, you got thriving. All of these are important, but sometimes you only get one option.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And if that means you had to just survive so that the next generation could exist, live, thrive,
Yeah.
then that's what it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I was thinking about kind of what you were saying about the laws and stuff like that. Like, I don't want to say it's easier for us now, but the laws are different now.
Mhm.
So the things that we can do and say and get involved in now, our
Mhm.
ancestors didn't have that ability to, and even had laws against them speaking out and
Mhm.
having a voice and things like that. They had to do that undercover, or unless they had some sort of leader who was like, I don't care, I'm speaking out.
Mhm.
But as we all know, it takes a lot to speak out against something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially a system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one thing speaking out against a person. It's you and me, and we're, kind of having our thing. But if it's, one of us against an entire system
Mhm.
of living, I mean, that is extremely difficult to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also negates the experiences of how in the world a person could even become Passe Blanc.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That didn't come from nowhere.
Right. That part.
And again, when we think about, just slavery or enslaved people and, how the women of that time, these are babies that are taken from them. They never see them again. Who knows that when they're born, a lot of light skinned people when we're born are very, very light,
Mm-hmm.
So, they could have been raised, who knows, raised in the master's home, all kinds of stuff. So I think when we, look from modern day eyes back on the past, you got to look at the whole situation.
I
Mhm.
You got to
agree.
start back from there's a reason that we have in America, we have light-skinned Black people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Even though we come in all colors
True.
regardless, but when we are talking specifically about the roots that have been watered
Mhm.
with our ancestors' DNA,
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. And I think it's important to note that this is a very new system
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of the planet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like these sorts of things were initiated by, you know, I believe it was the Spaniards was the original colonizing people. And so that is the 1400s, and then you go into the 1500s when everything started to get established
Mhm.
here. So
Mm-hmm.
you can't back then you can't enslave the people who are part of your country, which meant they could not enslave the indigenous people. Now they have a whole other history that we're not even gonna fully get into today, but they are part of the Passe Blanc as well because
Mhm.
some of the people that we know and love in different movies and things like that are actually white passing indigenous people or white passing Asians or white passing Black people or
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
But all of this started from that shift right there. And then it goes on to this whole mastermind of this industry. I think some people, when they think about like plantations and things like that, they're thinking about the product that they can eat or wear, but they're not thinking about the bodies that were also products, because there were
Yep.
breeding plantations
Mhm.
where that's
Absolutely.
all that happened were babies.
Yep.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. It's a very disgusting thing to think about.
mhm.
And, you know, makes me glad. I think I was saying this a little bit earlier that this is the time that I was born in.
Yeah.
You know, um, I can appreciate the lives that my ancestors lived, but this was the time for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't see myself. I'm self living the days of
Of
my
old.
ancestors. Yeah,
Mhm.
because I say all the time, yeah, they would have unalived me. Because yeah, no.
And if you think about the many people that they did,
Mhm.
because there
Mhm.
are a lot of bodies that have no markers.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh.
Like if we start digging up stuff, think about what's been happening in Canada when they've been finding all these
Oh yeah.
indigenous bodies.
Yeah.
Um, with everything that is going on there. Um, I'm pretty sure we walking on people every day.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sure.
I mean, when you think about the number of human beings that have existed, since humans have been on the planet.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm
Yeah.
You have
pretty
no
sure.
choice.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure at some point in time you have stepped on ground that has, seen the loss of many people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Just this whole kind of topic makes me think about my paternal grandmother. Her home next to her backyard was a private family owned cemetery, very small. I would say maybe like a 20 by 20. Like
Mhm.
it's not that big. So the front half of this small little cemetery, very neat, very well taken care of. Then there's a divider, and then the back half of that cemetery, uh, totally overgrown.
Mm.
The markers are very, broken and the worn and things like that. And that was one of the things that they always told us that the front half of course, belonged to the family, and then the back half was their slaves.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And we
Mm.
used to of course, go in there as children and, do things as children do. And it was such a out of body experience
Mhm.
to be walking on those plots because the ground was even like soft.
Mm.
Yeah, it was.
Really?
Mm-hmm. It was
Oh
really. It's
wow.
such a weird experience.
Yeah, that would have freaked me
I'd
out.
have been like, we gotta go.
Uh-huh.
Um, but speaking of families, like I was saying earlier, there is a line, a branch, should I say, of my family that did pass. Now we've lost, information on them because they went on and passed as uh white individuals, but that is exactly why.
Mhm.
A lot of my family originated from Franklin and Nashville, Tennessee. And when I look at those census and how many people lived in those homes and who
Mhm.
was made with who and all that other kind of stuff, I can understand the thought process behind I just need to get to a better place. I just need to be better.
Yeah.
Now, the problem I see, and like we said in our previous session about the movie that we're going to have at the end of the month,
Mhm.
is that when you use your phenotype
Yeah.
to oppress
Mhm.
other people.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that is a whole other thing that we're going to get into in the MMB, but it's just we need to make sure that we understand where this comes from and how it has impacted the world as a whole, because it's not, like I said, it's not just black people.
And how it impacts the individual who's doing
Mhm.
it.
Yes.
Now
Yeah.
we can definitely talk about that in the MMB as well. But because I read an article about a young lady who is she is Black Power, but she is white passing, and she said she used her white passing privilege um on accident, but not
Mhm.
uh and felt so devastated that she
Mm.
did it. But she
Mhm.
did it because when she was in the hospital about to have her baby, and she remembered the story that her mom told her about her birth, which was her mom was giving birth to her. She was of light skin, and the nurse took the baby away from her and brought her a darker skinned child. And so
What?
so the
That's
mother
wild.
literally almost hurt herself because she got out of the bed, went to the hallway and started screaming about her baby. And she said for her whole childhood she heard this story and she didn't want that to happen to her.
Yeah.
And I think she has a brother, and her brother was light skinned, dark skinned or darker than her, and she's white passing. And so they would always like assume that they weren't siblings,
Yeah.
that they didn't belong to her father, because her
Yeah.
father was white, I believe.
Gotcha.
And
Wow.
so I was like,
That's
so that's why
wild.
she did it. And she said she felt horrible about it.
Think about the number of times that has happened.
Right.
Remember, I told y'all about my mom's
Mm.
situation, and we were on a military base where you know whose child my mom is. You know who her people are, because if this is a dependent, you know who they are attached to.
Mhm.
So when my mom was about to throw hands, you're not taking my child up out of here. Bring me my baby back. Because they were trying to tell her that I wasn't hers because I was so fair skinned. I'm like, how do you get the sun on the inside of the womb?
Right.
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 I'm gonna get a little chocolatey, just a tad, out of my parentage. But I'm just like, y'all, come on. Like, this is ridiculous. But I've seen tons of situations where, more typically when it is a biracial or interracial, couple, where one child will come out Caucasian with blue eyes and blonde hair, and the other will be just as chocolatey with brown hair and brown eyes as they want to be, and they're like, they're not related. They literally are.
Tamara, I think, is a good example of that. Her daughter, her daughter is a little more tan.
Oh,
and then her son is blonde hair, blue eye.
Yeah.
And just a little bit lighter. Now he is, of course, his mom is biracial and his father is white. Because that kind of brings
Genes.
those genes kind of splice up a little bit more. But genetics is a funny thing. Genetics is a very funny thing. Again, I think that there are some, for that time frame, some absolute benefits to walking the world as a white person, even though you were either biracial or some of the other descriptors that they used back then.
That we're not going to use because they are very derogatory.
Yes.
And we all know this is also where the one drop rule comes from. So I definitely believe that there were some benefits. I think some ways that it could have been a negative, of course, is like an identity crisis. That also means that you are leaving your family.
Yeah.
To
never return.
Exactly.
Yeah, like they
Especially
don't
as we
even
got
exist.
away from the slave, after emancipation, people that engaged in white passing or living as white passing, that means you have no access to these people anymore.
Well, I read another article. This woman, she said that her mom, she was white passing. She left her family and ended up marrying a white man and everything, and was living her life that way. Her mom called her and told her that her father was passing away. She couldn't even go see her dad because she was like, that's not the life. That's not my life.
Yeah.
And after that, she never spoke to her mother again.
That's yeah. I mean, there's got to be a sense of loneliness for those individuals because you have to craft a story.
Yeah.
Like, you have to live a lie. So I have to create this life that didn't exist, because how do I tell you that you can never meet my family?
Yeah. And it also confuses you of who you are. Like, we already have a difficulty understanding who we are until we do our little 23andMe thing, and we still don't. We just know the bloodline. We don't really know who we
the
are.
Culture of it.
Right. And so just imagine if you have to erase your culture and create another one, like that still does not help you to understand who you are.
Yeah, and then think about wondering if your kids what genes they gonna follow.
Right.
Because it's not just, I keep getting whiter and whiter. That's not what happens. Sometimes you be like, that's a chocolate person. Where did this come from? Yeah,
throwback genes.
So I really, I don't know when it was or who said it, but I remember having a hearing a "Am I the?"
Mhm.
Y'all know what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
And this person gave birth to a brown baby, and the husband swore up and down that she had cheated on him. Ended up treating her horribly. Family treated her horribly, threw all the baby stuff out. She had to go live with her family.
Mhm.
They did the DNA. It was their baby. The husband had African ancestry.
Wow.
What?
Ain't that something?
Wow.
Mhm.
And I can only think about the number of people that, were Passe Blanc, that had children that turned out to be tan, curly hair, and all of a sudden, the treatment that, whether it was because it was on the husband's side or on the mother's side, like, what in the world?
Yeah.
As this child is starting to grow up and it's like, wait a minute, hold on now. You starting to something going on here.
And then don't let it be a woman and she get them hips and them
Mhm.
chest parts.
Mhm. Mhm.
I cannot.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. And of course this fell out of favor eventually, because now it's not seen as a good thing,
Okay.
You're a
to walk the
sellout.
world to walk the
Mhm.
world this way. Again, we still see a reason why people do it, right, wrong, or indifferent, but, this practice has definitely fallen out of favor,
Mhm.
within the last, 50 years.
Yeah,
Man, that's a lot.
it is.
It's hard out here for
I'm
all the
I'm not
all
pimped.
the shades of black.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. Man. Well, y'all know we always end off with a quote.
Today's quote comes from C. Joy Bell C. I am not a little bit of many things, but I am the sufficient representation of many things. I am not an incompletion of all these races, but I am a masterpiece of the prolific. I am an entirety. I am not a lack of anything. Rather, I am a whole of many things. God did not see it needful to make me generic. He thinks I am better than that.